Then I want you taking him up on perjury.
Your Honor.
Will you take him up for perjury?
He admitted it was a mistake, Your Honor.
No, but he lied. He lied on a sworn
Absolutely
citation.
not, Your Honor. And
Cops consider themselves untouchables as they go on arresting anyone they wish. They forget that they are only paid to enforce the law and are not above it. But today, we'll be going through these cases where evil cops were owned and humbled in courtrooms. Officer Michael Wagner had arrested defendant Lisette Gonzalez for a DU1. However, during court proceeding, it was revealed that he never administered a breathalyzer test, yet falsely recorded that she tested above the legal limit. When the judge learned of this, he responded in a way that had not been seen in courts before.
I want to be enlightened.
It was a mistake, admittedly, by Michael Wagner.
I know.
Testified to that today.
He caused her to have her driver's license suspended for at least a few months for nothing. So are you going to no process that case, or am I going to get mad at you today?
perhaps you can get mad at me, Your Honor, but at this point...
Why wouldn't you? Wait a minute. Did you hear the uncontroverted testimony of this officer?
Your Honor.
Then I want you taking him up on perjury.
Your Honor.
Will you take him up for perjury?
He admitted it was a mistake, Your Honor.
No, but he lied. He lied on a sworn
Absolutely
citation.
not, Your Honor, and that is not true.
I'm dismissing. I am dismissing this charge. No, I'm dismissing the charge.
This action visibly angered the judge, and he would not stop here as he went on to grant more favors to the defendant.
This whole case was fishy, and I have no idea how they... You know what?
Their address on file.
You know what?
The state intends to amend
I'm
the
granting.
charge and proceed on
I'm rescinding the sentence. I'm granting the JOA.
You don't agree with the state's decision on
I'm
the
granting
other
the
charge?
JOA in fairness.
In fairness, because you don't like the state's decision today, Your Honor, on the case?
No, you're not. Now that I consider what Officer Wagner testified to and how many times he basically tripped over himself just to arrest this lady with no real probable cause. You're done. Motion, the JOA is granted.
And you're not going to provide a written order on that?
Nope. You want to appeal me? Appeal me.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The case should have never been done. Never.
Thank you for letting us know that, Your Honor.
The judge not only reversed his decision, but acquitted the defendant on the spot, leaving the arresting officer and his attorney in dismay. Well, sometimes police officers do the unthinkable in courtrooms, costing their cities thousands of dollars. In a September 2012 hearing of an assault case, Judge Doris Bird laid out punishment for an assault Anthony Waller when a police officer decided to take matters into his own hands.
Investigation for false imprisonment, assault in the third degree, assault as a class 2 felony, and a misdemeanor charge as well in possession of drug paraphernalia.
I'd like to object first. If I'm under investigation, I thought the investigation came first, then the rest came. Hold on, man.
Get on your feet. You don't turn on me. Get on your feet.
Waller was only talking to the judge when Deputy Brady Lovengier slammed him to the ground before taking him away. The suspect later claimed that he suffered broken teeth and head wounds. As a result, the deputy was suspended by the sheriff's office and ultimately resigned. On the other hand, Mr. Waller ended up getting $50,000 in damages from a federal jury. This officer lost his job for this. But what happened to this next bully in court will leave you all satisfied.
5 individuals claimed that this defendant tased them when they were not consenting to it, when they were not looking.
January 2023, Behar County Deputy Andrew Garcia was arrested for using his taser on cadets in training. Garcia was charged with 2 counts of official oppression, assault with bodily injury, and harassment. He pled guilty to the charges as Judge Boyd proceeded with the case.
You entered a plea to count 4 tampering with the government record. You entered a plea of guilty. The state waives counts 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7. According to the plea bargaining agreement, punishment is to be assessed at 1 year in the state jail facility. The state recommends community supervision. They're opposing your application for deferred adjudication. Have both parties had a chance to review the PSI report, state?
Yes, Judge. Yeah.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, I've gone over my client and given him a chance to read it at his own pace.
It was Deputy Chavez.
No. Not in training, because you were not tasing people in training. I know that sometimes, and I don't know if it's still the case, I think it's not the case, they would tase officers in training so they would know this is the voltage of the taser, this is how it feels.
The state attorney explained what Deputy Garcia had actually done. The revelations will surely leave you in shock and dismay.
Yes, Judge. So this defendant took advantage of people who he was supposed to be supervising and training in the Bexar County Jail. He was the CERT deputy in charge of cadets and lockdown units with violent offenders, people with ag assaults, murder charges pending. At least 5 individuals claimed that this defendant tased them when they were not consenting to it, when they were not looking, and that he did it in front of inmates, which, jeopardizes the security of the jail and also does not help with the retention issues that the jail is having as well. At least 2 of the victims left after that they were tased because they didn't want to be part of that work environment. Some of them were tased on the arms, legs, back, stomach. Multiple people said they did not want to be tased. He did it anyways. There's evidence that after he tased them and that the victims would ask him, "Why'd you do that?" He would look at them and smile. Some of the people consented to being tased. However, it was under a type of duress. For example, one of the victims went to him asking for clippers so that they could cut the inmate's hair in another unit. And he said, "I'll give them to you if you let me tase you."
It's bizarre to hear that a law enforcement officer was being a straight-up bully and was harassing his juniors who were there for training. However, the events keep on getting worse.
In the PSI, I noticed that he said that he had been tased before. There's evidence that was uncovered throughout the investigation that he would, when the victims would say, "Hey man, why'd you do that to me? Have you ever been tased?" He would respond back with, "No, and I'm not going to let anyone tase me." I don't know which part of that is actually true. Judge, I just want to make it very clear that when these reports come out and when all this stuff is happening, they don't say Andrew Garcia was tasing people in the jail. They say a Bexar County Sheriff's deputy was tasing people. He's besmirched the badge of the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. This is supposed to be a controlled environment, and he added chaos to an already chaotic environment. By doing this in front of the inmates, it put not only him in jeopardy and the cadets, but also the other inmates. And it is his sole job in the jail to maintain the health and safety of the inmates who are there. When he was confronted about it, he put on a government record that he does not recall this ever happening. However, in the PSI, he says the reason he did it is because it was done to him. The old saying, if all your friends jump off of a bridge, are you going to do it too? And here it seems like he just went along with it and was tasing all these cadets.
The poor cadet who was multiple times spoke to investigators, or else this unlawful practice might have continued even longer.
The defendant is 6'10", 245 pounds, at least at the time when he was working there. One of the victims is 5'2" and 112 pounds. And he reported that he was held up against the wall physically, and that this defendant would not set him down, that he would put him into an arm bar in front of other inmates and tase him multiple times in front of other inmates. This was not a one-off time, Judge. If it was, I don't think the state would be having such an issue with the bird. It's the fact that we found out that this happened to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 individuals. And the one individual he didn't tase, he would harass. So when he would go to start doing his checks on the inmates, this defendant would point the red dot at him, come up behind him and clack the taser while the cadet was just trying to do his job. Therefore, the state thinks that this defendant should carry a conviction because of the egregiousness and because he has besmirched the badge of the Bexar County Sheriff's Office.
Defense.
It seemed the bully enjoyed harassing and attacking those innocent young cadets. Shortly after, his attorney had the floor, and the corrupt deputy tried his best to play the victim card.
What you're accused of by tasing and harassing these cadets is not a proper work environment or training environment for them?
100%.
Okay. Have you learned from this not to do something like that?
100%, yes.
Okay. Were you ever tased? Yes or no?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And is it part of training that everybody's going to get tased sooner or later? Is there normally a time when they get tased?
At a time and a place, yes.
Okay. And did you notice anything from the inmates reacting to your alleged misconduct?
I'm saying I do not recall tasing in front of inmates.
All right. So, and this is your first offense,
Yes, sir.
correct?
No,
Okay.
excuse me. Norma.
This is a first-time offender,
I do understand what I did was, wrong. I would not do it again if I made a mistake. I'm about to get married here in the next couple of weeks. I asked for, if you put on deferred, I would greatly appreciate it. Have done my lesson, Your Honor. And I would never, ever do anything like this again.
Any questions?
Any questions from the state?
Just a few questions. So your attorney asked you, you know that that's not a proper work environment, stuff to do in the work environment, correct? But you understand this is more than just some type of workplace harassment, that was criminal conduct you were doing?
Yes.
Where you were housing people who have allegedly committed crimes.
Correct.
So in fact, you were committing crimes in the jail.
Correct.
No further questions, Judge.
Nothing else, John.
All right.
After the defense and state presented their arguments, Judge Boyd took charge and announced the sentence. But before that, she took this bully to the cleaners.
We are actually going to marriage license to pick up the proper documents. And then whenever, I guess, they have their scheduling, we'll pick a date, but as soon as possible.
All right. The state is asking for you to have a conviction. If this were counts 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7, I would probably have no question about giving you a conviction. But however, you do need to be punished. And punished is not just permanent surrender of your TCO license. So I'm going to give you a choice. I will give you 4 years deferred adjudication. With that, you're going into custody to the Bexar County Jail for 30 days. That's your punishment. Or I will give you a conviction. Which do you choose?
And the conviction, are you just giving regular probation? Is that what you're saying,
Yes.
Your Honor?
Deputy Garcia was a lying coward. The only reason he didn't want to go to the same jail he worked at was because he couldn't face the cadets he was bullying for fun.
Only one that works with my family. My wife is focused on her degree. And it's, I don't want to be in jail, Your Honor.
Well, the people you tased, they just wanted to, I'm assuming they were there to support their families as well. So why were you tasing people? And I don't want to hear, because how old are you?
24.
24. I don't want to hear this is like college and people are hazing people. I never understood why people who had been hazed decide to haze other people. So why were you tasing people at the jail who are just there? And I know those cadets are young because I've seen some of them. They're 18. Some of them look as though they're 12. So why were you tasing cadets?
Your Honor, doesn't make it right. It's a thing that's going around.
Oh, you're saying there are other cadets there are other people at the name.
Deputy Garcia tried to cover up by claiming it was a long-standing practice. The judge cut him off and went over to humble him for the next few minutes, leaving him speechless.
Who are tasing people at the jail.
Off the top of my head, Your Honor, it's been a while. I don't.
No, I'm thinking, who tased you? Give me a name. I'm sure the state would like to know these names. So who are the names of the people who were tasing you?
Your Honor, I do not remember.
Of course, you always remember the first person who tased you.
The first person who tased me was in proper training.
Oh, what's their name?
That was.
All of the complainants in this case remember you as tasing them. That's why you're here. So who tased you?
In proper training, it was Deputy Chavez.
No. Not in training, because you were not tasing people in training. I know that sometimes, and I don't know if it's still the case, I think it's not the case, they would tase officers in training so they would know this is the voltage of the taser, this is how it feels. Much like in the military, when they release the gas, so you'll know how to wear your mask properly. No, I'm talking about who tased you improperly, because that's why we're here. You're saying people hazed you, so you're just hazing people. So who are these people who tased you when you were not in training?
Your Honor, I do not remember names.
All right, so who else is tasing people at the jail?
Garcia tried to dodge the question, but didn't realize he was up against a brilliant judge who wouldn't let him off so easily.
Because that's what you're telling people. You're telling me, you're telling the states, you're telling the attorney that there's tasing happening at the jail. I'm sure those cadets don't want to be tased if it's not in training. So who are these other people who are tasing cadets? We want to know. So tell me who they are. Do you need to sit in the box while you think of the names of the people?
Mr. Randall.
Any reason why are you not intentionally not remembering names, correct?
No, I cannot remember.
Oh, I mean, if you want to sit in the box and think about the names, because you can't just throw around people are being tased at the jail by other people and then that's it. Who are these people who are tasing people? There's nothing worse. Well, there may be other things that are worse than people who say, well, I heard. But you're not saying I heard.
Yes, ma'am.
You're saying, oh, now you're changing it to I heard?
I haven't seen someone get tased. I've heard of stories of people getting tased, and I just ran with that.
Oh, so he's never seen anybody tased. So now he's not just continuing the hazing that happened to him. He was just tasing people. Your unborn child, is this going to be a girl or a boy?
He's born 4 months old. He's a boy, yes, ma'am.
The deputy continued making a joke of himself, left with no answers. The pathetic bully never considered his actions wrong, and the judge kept pressing on his vague excuses.
He's born 4 months old. He's a boy, yes, ma'am.
4 months old. So what if he decides to be a cadet at the jail and somebody like you, who's 6'10", however much you weigh, is tasing him?
I would be unhappy with that.
Mm-hmm. How unhappy would you be?
Very unhappy. Very unhappy.
And how would you think the work environment would be for your son when they're constantly worried about some guy who's bigger than them tase them?
As a parent, I would not approve of that work environment, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm. That's what you did. Some people would call it being a bully, but that's what you did.
Yes, ma'am.
So you deserve a conviction, and I'm going to give you a conviction. Is there anything else from either party? In the state jail facility, suspended and probated for 4 years. Proof of employment within 30 days. There's to be no employment as a home health care provider or with minors. Regular reporting. Oh, and if I haven't said it before, I'm finding you guilty. There's to be regular reporting by Zoom or in person. There's to be regular UAs. There's to be the permanent surrender of your TCOL license. And I know sometimes people will give up their TCOL license, but then they go to another state and they're allowed to become officers again. So while you're on this probation, there's to be no employment as a security officer.
In my opinion, the deputy was lucky not to get a jail sentence. His punishment felt like a slap on the wrist. But the judge made sure to humble him one last time.
Court is not waiving any of those hours, and I'm going to require parenting classes. Probation, is there anything else? Is there anything else you need from the court to be successful?
Want to just give you anything, help you at all. This is your time to ask.
Sir, is there anything else you need from the court to be successful on this probation?
No, no.
All right. I'm showing you what's entitled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Rights to Appeal. Did you review that with your attorney? Did you understand it? And did you sign it? All right, we can go off the record. I understand why you don't want to do your time at the Bexar County Jail. And you know what? I know it has to do with people in the box and security for you at the Bexar County Jail. So that heavy beating of your heart, that's the heavy beating that all of those cadets had whenever you were on shift. And you need to remember that. Do you understand?
Sure.
All right, good luck to you. Yes.
I apologize. You want field visits?
Yes, field visits once a month for 3 months. All right, just have a seat. They'll go over conditions with you. With your attorney, did you understand it and did you sign it? All right, we can go off the record. I understand why you don't want to do your time at the Bexar County Jail. And you know what? I know it has to do with people in the box and security for you at the Bexar County Jail. So that heavy beating of your heart, that's the heavy beating that all of those cadets had whenever you were on shift. And you need to remember that. Do you understand?
Sure.
All right, good luck to you. Yes,
I apologize. You want field visits?
yes.
Garcia was immediately fired from the Behar County Sheriff's Office, and although he wasn't arrested, he will never get to be a law enforcement officer again, thanks to Judge Boyd. Well, this isn't the last time a judge destroyed an officer in court, as this case will leave you stunned.
At least give me the satisfaction of knowing that you're out there beating up nigga. LOL. How humiliating and degrading. Be a positive example to Officer Zeleniewski.
On January 28, 2015, Inkster police officer William Mendez and his partner John pulled over a black man for a traffic violation. What followed will shock you as Judge Vonda Evans details the incident during the trial.
I'm going to start out with Mr. Dent. The victim involved in this tragedy is a 58-year-old black man who was driving his Cadillac in Inkster, a suburb of Detroit. On the evening of January 28, 2015, where his life changed forever. He was stopped by the defendant, a then Inkster police officer, and his partner, Officer Zeleniewski. Mr. Dent was stopped for a minor traffic offense and ordered out of his vehicle. With his hands extended out of his driver's window, he was grabbed out, thrown to the ground, and struck 16 times in the head by the defendant. In his attempt to arrest him, he was thrown onto a window shield of a patrol car, bleeding profusely from a head injury. The responding police officers arrived as the defendant is wrestling the defendant to the ground. Mr. Dent was struck, kicked, and tased while on the ground by what appeared to be a group of angry, anxious police officers that celebrated after the defendant was beaten and cuffed.
This horrible beating had left Dent's face and shirt drenched in blood, but the officer's reaction to this was even worse.
The video in the car shows the police officers fist bumping as a celebratory act of bravery by the defendant and his cohorts. But the one image that struck out to the court was looking at Mr. Dent in his cell, shaking his head. In disbelief of what had occurred to him. If his conduct was indicative of what he was thinking, I would have thought this. What crime did I commit? Being a black man in a Cadillac, stopped for a minor traffic offense by a group of racist police officers looking at. As police officer John Zeleniewski, auxiliary police officer, testified in court too, in his response to a text, was quoted as saying, "At least give me the satisfaction of knowing that you're out there beating up right now. LOL. How humiliating and degrading that must have been."
After his arrest, the officers kept on humiliating, cleaned his blood off their uniforms with disinfectant. Dent was also charged with resisting arrest and drug. The judge was devastated by the events and delivered a powerful, heartfelt lecture.
He was left in a cell for a number of hours before getting medical treatment. But after hearing the defendant and his fellow officers joke about his injuries as they were wiping blood off their uniforms with disinfectant. 2015. Please be quiet in my courtroom. How does this happen? I'm going to tell you how it happened. Some years ago, 19 to be, well, 25 to be exact, I remember coming into this building with such enthusiasm, so excited. And I remember a lawyer telling me that nobody leaves out of this building like they came in. I didn't understand what that meant. You go to social events, you tell people what you do for a living, and after they say, what kind of cases do you hear? And as a judge, prosecution, defense, does criminal defense, a police officer, after a while they say, we don't want to know anymore. That's the job in the criminal justice system.
Racist Officer William could only sit and listen as the judge spoke. How fitting that he was being humbled by an African-American woman.
These pressures and expectations force officers who have a pure desire to purely serve the community as an occupation to conform to this group mentally or face being ostracized and labeled as an outcast among that group. These methods of indoctrination are passed along to new police recruits in the academy by stressing the importance of obedience to authority through a structure of shame and honor. It teaches them to conform and obey to the prevailing standards of the police culture. Field training, the recruit gets a reality check of what it's like to be out in the city. I was out at a mall yesterday. I asked a woman a question. I said, you don't have to answer. How much do you get paid an hour? She said, $15 with benefits. Well, guess what? That's more than what Inkster gets. They don't get benefits. The equipment, the police cars are old. We went out to the scene. Early in the morning, there were people who were using drugs. They just kind of came out. And the only thing I could imagine was the only thing that is separating these people from drugs are the police officers that appeared in my court.
Judge Vonda not only blasted the officer in question, but also questioned the overall system that produces such cops. On the other hand, all charges against Dent were dropped, and he settled with the city for $1.4 million.
According to Law Enforcement Today, a publication, police officers had the highest rate of alcoholism, divorce, drug abuse, suicide. Their life expectancy is 10 years less than the average American. Police are human beings too. They feel despair and they have ups and downs. Their job is made worse because they see on a daily basis, more than any other occupation, the worst behavior that people can inflict on one another. They go to work every day with the knowledge that some of the people that they are sworn to protect and serve want to kill them. But how do we as a community expect superior services from police officers who are making security guard salaries to receiving little compensation and struggling just to pay health care? We would rather save a few dollars to balance a budget than pay millions of dollars to reverse a tragedy that we could have prevented. I know that Mr. Dent would give back every dime of his $1 million settlement to go back to where he was in his life before January 28th. I wonder what would one half of that $1.4 million settlement awarded to Mr. Dent have done for the Inkster Police Department. Training officers that wanted to serve and not hiring officers that didn't belong. It's my belief that when we begin to value and properly compensate and train those that want to serve, then and only then will we as a community receive the type of services that we expect and demand from the defenders of our community, the police. It's amazing how poor cities like Flint can find millions of dollars to attempt to reverse a situation that $100 a day could and would have prevented.
Finally, Judge Vonda wrapped up the proceedings before sentencing the officer. Williams was ultimately sentenced to 13 months, to 10 years in jail. The chief of police also deemed his actions unnecessary, and he was fired from the police department. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. Today we saw cases where police officers were owned and humbled in courts. Typically, we do not get to see cops being held accountable for their crimes, but it does seem like a breath of fresh air whenever we see a tyrant getting owned and removed from the force. If you agree with me, please consider showing your support by liking this video, and make sure to subscribe to stay informed about future cases like. Also, if you enjoyed this video, check out the next video here.